So
Thanks,
can you
Peter.
elaborate on what this means?
What this means is that the regional air network support, that aviation support, which has proven so valuable, is being extended until the 28th of March, and the domestic aviation support network, that network support that we've provided, is going to be extended until the 31st of January. So for the 50 busiest pre-COVID routes on the domestic network, well, they're going to be extended, the subsidies for those, and for the more than 100 places that those regional airlines fly to, they'll be serviced, they'll be subsidised until around the end of March. So this is good news for those communities, certainly in remote regional and rural Australia, who, but for this subsidy, would not be getting air services, Peter. And so for them, they'll be able to get the doctors, they'll be able to get the important medical supplies into their communities, and they'll be able to fly to capital cities. Of course, we urge and encourage those borders to be eased, those restrictions to be lifted, because Australians want to travel. Jobs on the ground are only able to be provided by having planes in the air, in the aviation sector. And we want to make sure that for many of those thousands of workers, that they can get back to work in the aviation sector, Peter.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, if borders are closed, then this announcement's pointless because you can't fly.
Well, that's why we urge and encourage and implore the premiers of those states to lift their border restrictions to make sure that we can get those planes back in the air. But it's really important because those airlines are flying to those communities at the moment, but for this subsidy, they may not be getting and seeing planes. They may not even be able to travel. And for them, when they need respiratory equipment, they need personal protection equipment, they need frontline medical personnel, and they need other business transactions and medical transactions to take place. This is providing the necessary support that they so desperately need. And for many of those communities, it's a lifeline to the outside world.
They haven't changed their mind. They haven't been listening up until this point. What's going to change?
Well, they need to. And you know, rest assured, I appreciate that some of those curfew restrictions, etc., are being eased little by little, but it needs to happen sooner. We need to get loved ones back with each other for Christmas. As the warmer months approach, and they're almost on us now, we need to be able to have those holidays, that well-earned break from what a year we've had. And certainly there are great opportunities right throughout, particularly regional Australia. That's why we announced $250 million of assistance for regional communities and regional tourism and tourism generally across the nation just yesterday, given the fact that international travel is a little way off yet. But for domestic travel, there should be no impediment to that, Peter.
Anastasia Palaszczuk reacted to that yesterday, and she said that support, when it comes to the tourism sector, has come too late. What do you make of those comments? Is that a bit rich?
Too late. I mean, very rich. I mean, Queensland have had the tight border restrictions. And yes, I appreciate that every Premier wants to absolutely minimise the number of coronavirus cases. But, you know, the fact remains, Queensland is one of our best tourist destinations. And when you look at Cairns and look at the top end of Queensland, they haven't had a coronavirus case in many of those communities for a long, long time. And their tourism and hospitality sector has been smashed for a Premier in Queensland who cares little about that fact. And it's a massive, massive state with lots and lots of potential as far as tourism is concerned. People from the southern states want to be able to travel to Queensland. Well, they can't if there's such tight border restrictions. So for anybody to come out and criticise any of those decisions, the blame lies squarely and fairly at their feet. Deb Frecklington, she's got a vision for Queensland. I say make sure we get her in on 31st of October. She wouldn't be saying such nonsensical things, Peter.
When do you expect the New Zealand travel bubble to start, Minister?
We're having those discussions now, of course, between the Prime Minister and Jacinda Ardern. Those discussions are productive. We need to be able to get some international travel, and if it starts off with New Zealand, that's a good thing. They're our great friends, of course, going way back to Gallipoli and even before that. And if we can make sure that the best medical advice tells us that that's possible, then we certainly need to do it.
A JobKeeper is being wound back today. Is there any chance of that being reversed?
We need to get Australians back to work, and so many people tell me that these sorts of assistance payments are preventing people from getting off the couch and back to work as far as job seeker is concerned. With JobKeeper, we need to open up our economy again. The best and first way we can do it is by lifting these border restrictions. I appreciate that JobKeeper has kept engaged many of those workers with their places of employment, but we need to get Australians back to work. We've put on the table $314 billion of money to back end our economy. Of course, we've taken care of the health outcomes first and foremost, and we've done that very, very well. Next, the budget coming up is going to be a jobs and infrastructure budget. I look forward to that. We need to be able to get Australians back into work, and that's what we're doing.
Well, Labor says that you've got mixed messages when it comes to JobKeeper. You do want the economy to recover, but at the same time you're taking money out of people's pockets.
Labor would say that. Labor, we've got a Labor person running around in New South Wales saying at the moment that marijuana should be legalised. I mean, we've got Joel Fitzgibbon having one view on energy, and we've got Mark Dreyfus and most of the others with a completely different view. I mean, we're there for jobs, we're there for infrastructure, we're there for getting the economy back on its feet the way it needs to be, and that's what we've done the whole way through. We've taken care of the health outcomes. We've done very well in that regard as a nation compared to any other nation in the world, and we need to get our economy back working again, and every measure is designed to do just that.
Are you expecting the Nats to snatch the Queensland seat of Groom?
That'll be a matter for the people in Groom, the LNP, Liberal and National Party members. This is a decision taken for the branch members, by the branch members, for themselves going forward. So that's a completely sensible decision for them to take tonight. But one way or the other, we need a person in Groom, in government, whether they sit with the Liberal Party, whether they sit with the National Party. As long as they sit with the government, as long as we win that seat, John McVeigh's done an outstanding job, and the future LNP member for that seat will, I'm sure, continue on that fine tradition of representing Groom, that wonderful Queensland regional seat, the way it needs to be represented.
Would you like to see Matt Canavan go for it?
Well, Matt has said that that's unlikely. If Matt wants to have a crack at the lower house, then well and good, but Matt has said that that's probably unlikely. But we've got at least a dozen, as I'm told, good people who've signalled an interest in having a crack at that seat. We'll see what happens, and they'll make that decision, the Groom pre-selectors, in due course.
Would you like to see Matt Canavan in the lower house?
Well, if Matt wants to have a go at the lower house, of course I'd welcome him in the lower house. We want more good and sensible people, of course, representing the National Party, representing the LNP, and representing regional Queensland. We want to make sure that people know that there are jobs, there are futures, bright futures for those who want to live in regional Australia, and Matt has always certainly progressed that point, as have I, as have the rest of the Nationals and regional Liberals.
Okay.